There are moments in life when every door seems closed. You pray, but nothing changes. You cry, but heaven feels silent. You work hard, but the struggle keeps increasing. The doctor gives a bad report. The bills continue to pile up. Friends walk away. Opportunities disappear. And suddenly you find yourself standing in front of a situation that looks impossible. But when man reaches his limit, God begins his work. The God who created the heavens and the earth has never been intimidated by impossibility. What confuses people does not confuse God. What blocks you cannot block him. He is the God who makes rivers in deserts, opens doors no man can shut, and creates pathways where there seems to be absolutely no way. Too many people think their situation is permanent because they can't see a solution. But God never asked you to see the solution. He asked you to trust him while he works behind the scenes. Faith is believing that God is moving even when you cannot trace his hand. Sometimes, God allows you to arrive at impossible moments so you can finally stop depending on yourself. As long as you think your education, your connections, your money, or your strength can save you, you will never fully experience the power of God. But when every human option runs out, heaven steps in. Some of the greatest miracles happen in the middle of hopeless situations. When people said it was over, God said, "Watch me work." When others walked away, God stepped closer. When fear said, "You will never recover," God whispered, "I already made a way." The problem with many people is that they judge God by their circumstances instead of judging their circumstances by God's power. Your obstacle may be big, but your God is greater. Your mountain may be high, but God is higher. Your pain may be deep, but his power is deeper. You may not know how things will change, but God already has a plan. He knows the way out before you even realize you are trapped. He sees tomorrow while you are sick. I was worried about today. Nothing catches him by surprise. Sometimes God will intentionally wait until the last moment so that when the breakthrough comes, nobody can take credit except him. He wants the glory. He wants people to know that what happened in your life could only be explained by divine intervention. That sickness didn't destroy you because God had another plan. That betrayal didn't stop you because God was redirecting you. That closed door wasn't punishment, it was protection. God knows what you cannot see. And here is the powerful truth. God often builds highways through hardship. The pressure you are feeling is not proof that God abandoned you. It may actually be evidence that he is preparing you. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Strength is developed through resistance. Faith grows in difficulty. Stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "God, what are you preparing me for?" Because every battle carries a lesson. Every storm carries a purpose. Every delay carries development. You are stronger than you think because God is with you. The enemy wants you to quit in the middle of the process. Fear wants you to surrender before the miracle arrives. Doubt wants you to believe that nothing will ever change. But God sent this message to remind you that your story is not over. That obstacle is not permanent. That struggle is not final. That pain is not eternal. God is still working. He can open doors overnight. He can restore years in a moment. He can turn failure into favor and weakness into strength. One touch from God can change everything. You may feel surrounded, but God already created an escape. You may feel forgotten, but heaven still knows your name. You may feel weak, but his power works best in weakness. So don't give up now. Pray when you feel weak. Stand when you feel tired. Believe when you cannot see. Trust when it does not make sense. Because the same God who made a way before is still making ways today. Ninth, when this season finally changes, when the breakthrough finally comes, when the miracle finally appears, you will look back and realize that God was guiding you the entire time. Where there was no way, God made a way. Where there was darkness, God brought light. Where there was defeat, God released victory. And what seemed impossible became possible through the power of God. There are seasons in life when everything around you says it's impossible. You have exhausted your strength. You have tried every option you know. You prayed, waited, worked, and sacrificed. Yet nothing seems to move. The door remains closed. The burden remains heavy. The struggle remains real. And in those moments, fear begins to whisper that maybe this is the end for you. Maybe things will never change. Maybe your situation is too broken, too complicated, too far gone. But God specializes in impossible situations. What looks impossible to people is an opportunity for God to reveal his power. Human limit. Asians do not limit heaven. The God who created the universe is not intimidated by obstacles, delays, failures, or closed doors. When God steps into a situation, natural laws no longer have the final say. Logic no longer controls the outcome. Circumstances no longer determine the future. God has a way of stepping into hopeless moments and turning them into testimonies. Sometimes God allows situations to become impossible because he wants you to stop depending on your own ability. As long as you believe you can fix everything by yourself, you will never fully trust him. But when your strength runs out, when your wisdom fails, when your connections cannot help you anymore, that is often the moment God begins to show his supernatural power. Many people want miracles, but they don't want impossible situations. Yet miracles are born in places where human ability ends. Nobody needs a miracle when they already have control. A miracle becomes necessary when there is no human explanation left. That is why you cannot panic when life becomes difficult. Your problem did not catch God by surprise. Before you ever faced the battle, God already had the answer. Before the enemy attacked you, heaven already prepared a strategy. God never reacts in fear because he already sees the ending while you are still struggling through the middle. Some people are crying today because they cannot see a way forward. They look at their finances and see lack. They look at their family and see division. They look at their health and see weakness. They look at their future and see uncertainty. But God is not asking you to trust your vision. He is asking you to trust his power. Faith means believing God even when circumstances refuse to change immediately. Faith says, I don't understand what is happening, but I know God is still in control. Faith stands in the middle of confusion and still expects God to move. You may feel trapped today. You may feel surrounded by pressure from every side. Boo. God has never lost a battle, and he is not about to start with your situation. The same God who opened doors for others is able to open doors for you. The same God who restored broken people before can restore you. The same God who made a way in impossible situations throughout history still has power today. Do not underestimate what God can do in one moment. One divine opportunity can change your life. One answered prayer can reverse years of struggle. One touch of favor can open doors nobody thought possible. God does not need a long time to change a situation. When his power moves, things can shift suddenly. Sometimes God waits until the situation looks completely hopeless so that nobody can take credit for what he is about to do. He allows the pressure to increase so his glory can become undeniable. When people look at your life after the breakthrough, they will know it was not luck, talent, or coincidence. They will know God made a way. The enemy wants you to quit before the miracle arrives. Fear wants you to surrender before the breakthrough comes. Doubt wants you to believe that your situation will always remain the same. But you cannot allow temporary pain to destroy eternal purpose. What you are facing now is not greater than the God who is fighting for you. There is power in trusting God when nothing makes sense. Anybody can praise God when life is easy. Anybody can smile when prayers are answered quickly. But real faith rises when everything looks impossible and still says, God will make a way somehow. Your weakness does not cancel God's power. Your struggle does not cancel God's promise. Your delay does not cancel your destiny. God is still working behind the scenes even when you cannot see immediate results. He is able to create opportunities where there are none. He is able to bring peace in chaos, strength in weakness, and hope in darkness. He is able to turn setbacks into setups for greater purpose. What looks like defeat today may become tea. He very testimony that inspires others tomorrow. So keep praying, keep believing, keep standing, keep trusting. Because when God decides to move, no obstacle can stop him, no enemy can block him, and no impossible situation can remain impossible. One of the hardest things for people to handle is delay. We can survive difficulty for a while if we know the answer is coming quickly. But when days turn into months and months turn into years, disappointment begins to grow. You prayed for change, but nothing happened. You believed for breakthrough, but the door stayed closed. You trusted God for healing, restoration, provision, or direction, yet it feels like heaven has gone silent. And in those moments, the enemy begins to plant dangerous thoughts in your mind. He whispers that God has forgotten you. He tells you that your prayers are useless. He wants you to believe that because the answer has not arrived yet, it never will. But delay is not denial. Just because God has not done it yet does not mean he will not do it. God's timing is different from human timing. We want immediate answers, instant breakthroughs, and quick solutions. But God works according to purpose, not pressure. He sees what you cannot see. He understands what you do not understand. While you are focused on the pain of waiting, God is focused on the power of preparation. Sometimes God delays the blessing because he is preparing you for what you asked him to carry. A person may pray for influence, but influence without maturity can destroy them. Someone may pray for success, but success without character becomes dangerous. God will never allow a blessing to arrive before the right season. The waiting season is not wasted time. The waiting season is training ground. It is in the delay that faith is developed, patience is strengthened, and character is built. Anybody can trust God when everything happens quickly. But real faith is revealed when you continue believing even after long periods of silence. NCE, many people quit too early because they misunderstand the process. They think delay means rejection. They think closed doors mean failure. But sometimes God closes one door because a greater door is ahead. Sometimes he removes certain people because they cannot go where he is taking you. Sometimes he slows you down because danger is ahead and you cannot see it yet. God's delays are often acts of protection. You may be frustrated because things are not moving according to your schedule, but God is not limited by your timeline. He is not late. He is intentional. What feels slow to you may actually be perfect timing in heaven. There are moments when God will allow your situation to become uncomfortable because he is stretching your faith. Faith cannot grow where there is no challenge. Strength cannot grow where there is no resistance. The delay is developing something inside you that instant success could never produce. While you are waiting, God is working behind the scenes. Eve. And when you cannot see visible movement, heaven is still active. Doors are being arranged. Opportunities are being aligned. People are being positioned. Circumstances are shifting in ways you cannot yet understand. One day you will realize that God was working the entire time. The danger during delay is discouragement. Discouragement makes people give up too soon. It causes them to stop praying, stop believing, and stop expecting. But you cannot allow temporary waiting to destroy permanent purpose. Your future is too important to surrender because of frustration. There are blessings connected to endurance. Some breakthroughs only come after persistence. Some miracles only happen after seasons of waiting. God often uses delay to see whether you will trust him, even when there is no immediate evidence. Can you still worship while waiting? Can you still pray while waiting? Can you still trust while waiting? Can you still believe while waiting? Because faith is not proven when the answer arrives. Faith is proven while the answer is delayed. Many people want God's promises, but they do not want God's process. Yet the process is what prepares you to handle the promise correctly. Without preparation, people often misuse what they prayed for. That is why God develops you privately before he blesses you publicly. The waiting season also reveals what is truly in your heart. Delays expose impatience, fear, pride, doubt, and insecurity. But if you allow God to work in you during the waiting season, you will come out stronger, wiser, and more mature than before. You may not understand why things are taking so long right now. You may feel forgotten while others around you seem to move ahead faster. But comparison will poison your faith. God has a unique plan for your life. And his timing for you may not look like his timing for someone else. Do not become bitter because your season looks different. Some of the greatest blessings arrive after the hardest waiting seasons. Some of the most powerful testimonies are born through long battles. God often saves the greatest breakthroughs for people who refuse to quit. The enemy wants you to think nothing is happening, but every prayer matters. Every tear matters. Every moment of faith matters. Heaven has not ignored your cries. Your delay has purpose. Your waiting has meaning. Your process is producing strength. And when the right moment finally arrives, what God releases into your life will be greater than anything you lost while waiting. Faith is one of the most powerful forces God has given to humanity, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. Many people think faith only works when results are visible. They believe faith becomes strong after the breakthrough appears, after the prayer is answered, after the door opens. But real faith operates before any evidence exists. Real faith sees the road before it appears. Anybody can believe when the miracle is already visible. Anybody can praise God after. Or the victory comes. But faith begins where human understanding ends. Faith is the ability to trust God while standing in uncertainty. It is believing that God is moving even when nothing around you seems to be changing. There are seasons when life feels dark and directionless. You pray for guidance, but the path is unclear. You ask God for answers, but silence surrounds you. Fear starts telling you that because you cannot see the way forward, there is no way forward. But just because you cannot see the road does not mean God has not already prepared it. God does not need your eyes to create a future for you. He does not depend on your understanding to accomplish his purpose. Long before you arrived at this moment, God already knew every obstacle, every challenge, every delay, and every attack you would face. Nothing in your life has surprised heaven. The problem is that many people walk by sight instead of faith. They only believe in what they can touch, explain, or understand. If the money is not there, they panic. If the opportunity has not appeared, they lose hope. If circumstances look impossible, they assume defeat is certain. But faith refuses to let circumstances become final authority. Faith says, even though I cannot see the answer, I know God is still working. Faith says, even though the door is closed now, God can open another one. Faith says, even though I feel weak today, God's power is still greater than my struggle. Your vision is limited, but God's vision is eternal. You can only see what is in front of you right now. God sees next week, next year, and the next season of your life. While you are worried about present problems, God is already arranging future blessings. Sometimes God intentionally hides the entire picture because he wants you to trust him step by step. If God revealed every detail of the journey immediately, many people would depend on information instead of relationship. But faith requires dependence. Faith requires truth. Faith requires obedience even when complete understanding is unavailable. That is why faith often feels uncomfortable. It stretches you beyond logic and pushes you beyond certainty. Faith forces you to keep moving while answers are still unfolding. Many people miss opportunities because they wait until everything becomes clear before taking a step. But faith often requires movement before clarity arrives. You must trust God enough to move forward even when the full road is not visible yet. Fear says, wait until you have proof. Faith says, trust God before the proof arrives. The enemy attacks your faith because he understands that faith connects you to God's power. If he can fill your heart with doubt, he can weaken your confidence and stop your progress. That is why negative thoughts become so dangerous. The enemy wants you to focus on what is wrong instead of who God is. But faith shifts your focus. Faith does not deny the existence of problems, but it refuses to magnify problems above God's ability. Faith recognizes the battle while still believing in victory. Faith understands that obstacles may be real, but God's power is greater than every obstacle. There will be moments when people around you will not understand your faith. They may question your confidence. They may criticize your hope. They may tell you to give up because they cannot see what you see. But faith allows you to see spiritually before things become visible naturally. You cannot allow other people's doubt to poison your belief. Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs begin with invisible preparation. While you think nothing is happening, God is already making connections, opening hidden doors, arranging opportunities, and positioning the right people in your path. Heaven can be working powerfully even when earthly evidence appears small. Faith keeps your spirit stable during uncertain seasons. It allows you to stand when fear tries to shake you. It gives you confidence when circumscribed. Chances look impossible. Faith reminds you that God's promises are stronger than temporary situations. You may not know how things will work out right now. You may not understand the path God is taking you through. But faith means trusting His heart even when you cannot trace His hand. Every major victory begins with unseen belief. Before the breakthrough becomes public, faith first develops privately. Before the answer appears physically, it is first carried spiritually in your heart. So do not let temporary darkness convince you that there is no future ahead. God can create roads where none exist. He can open doors no human being can close. He can bring clarity into confusion and purpose into pain. The road may not be visible today, but faith keeps walking because it knows God already prepared the way. Pressure is something most people try to avoid. We want comfort, ease, stability, and predictable seasons where nothing disturbs our peace. But in reality, growth rarely happens in comfort. Growth happens in pressure. Just like a seed must be buried under soil before it becomes a tree, human purpose often develops in hidden, uncomfortable, and difficult seasons. When life begins to feel heavy, people often assume something has gone wrong. They think pressure is a sign of failure or abandonment. But pressure is not always punishment. In many cases, pressure is preparation. It is God's way of shaping, refining, and revealing what is already inside you. There are qualities in you that you would never discover without difficulty. Strength is not revealed when everything is easy. Strength is revealed when everything is hard and you still choose to stand. Patience is not developed when life is smooth. It is formed when delays stretch your endurance. Faith is not proven in moments of comfort. It is proven in moments of crisis. God does not waste pressure. He uses it intentionally to bring out purpose. What feels like breaking is often actually building. What feels like key crushing is often shaping. What feels like tearing down is often rearranging something deeper within you so that you can carry what God has prepared for your future. Many people pray for purpose, but they do not realize that purpose often comes through pressure. Before a diamond becomes valuable, it must go through intense heat and crushing conditions deep beneath the earth. If it could speak, it would probably call the process unbearable. Yet without that process, it would remain ordinary. The same is true in human life. Pressure transforms potential into visibility. When God places you under pressure, it is not because He is against you. It is because He is working within you. He sees what you cannot see. He knows what you are capable of becoming. And sometimes the only way to bring that out is through situations that stretch you beyond your comfort zone. Pressure also reveals what is truly inside your heart. When life is easy, anyone can appear strong, faithful, and confident. But when challenges come, true character is exposed. Pressure removes false appearances and shows authenticity. It reveals whether your foundation is built on fear or faith, doubt or trust, panic or peace. There are moments when pressure feels overwhelming. Responsibilities increase. Problems multiply, expectations rise. And instead of relief, you feel surrounded by tension. In those moments, it is easy to believe that everything is falling apart. But often, what feels like collapse is actually construction happening in a deeper way. God does not always remove pressure immediately because He is using it to shape your identity. If He removed every difficulty too quickly, you might never grow into the strength required for your destiny. Some assignments require maturity that only pressure can develop. Think about how muscles grow. Resistance is necessary. Without resistance, there is no strength. Without weight, there is no development. The pressure you resist is often the very thin. G, building your capacity for greater responsibility later. God also uses pressure to shift your focus. When everything is comfortable, people often become distracted. But when pressure arrives, it forces you to pay attention, to pray more deeply, to depend more fully, and to trust more sincerely. Pressure often drives you back to God in ways comfort never could. It is in pressure that you begin to discover new levels of dependence on God. You realize that your own ability is not enough. Your wisdom is limited. Your strength has boundaries. But God's strength has no limit. And in that realization, your relationship with Him deepens. Pressure can feel isolating. It can feel like nobody understands what you are going through. But even in those moments, God is not distant. He is closer than you realize, working in ways you cannot yet see. What feels like silence is often divine activity behind the scenes. There is also purpose in what pressure produces. It produces resilience, wisdom, emotional maturity, spiritual depth, and inner stability. These qualities are not developed in easy seasons. They are formed in difficult ones. And once they are formed, they remain with you long after the pressure is gone. One day you will look back at the seasons that felt overwhelming and realize they were shaping you for something greater. You will see that what almost broke you actually built you. What almost defeated you actually developed you. What almost stopped you actually strengthened you. Pressure is never the end of your story. It is part of the process that reveals who you are becoming. And when God finishes His work, you will understand that every moment of pressure had purpose written all over it. There are moments in life when everything feels finished. You look at your situation and it seems like nothing more can be done. A relationship ends, a door closes, a dream collapses, an opportunity disappears, and suddenly you begin to believe that your story has reached its final page. The mind starts writing endings that God never authored. The heart begins grieving things that heaven has not declared over. But what looks like the end is often where God quietly begins something new. Human perspective is limited to what is visible right now. When something breaks, we assume it is over. When something is lost, we assume it cannot be restored. When something fails, we assume it has no future. But God does not view life through the lens of endings. He views life through the lens of purpose, transformation, and new beginnings. There are times when God allows things to end because He is preparing something greater than what was there before. Endings are often not punishments, they are transitions. What feels like loss may actually be redirection. What feels like failure may actually be preparation for something more aligned with your destiny. Many people struggle because they interpret endings emotionally instead of spiritually. When a door closes, they assume rejection. When plans collapse, they assume disappointment. But God often closes doors not to limit you, but to guide you. Some endings are divine protection in disguise. If certain things had continued, they might have kept you stuck, distracted, or delayed from what God truly intended for your life. Sometimes God must end the old chapter so that the new one can begin. A book cannot move forward if the page is never turned. In the same way, your life cannot enter new dimensions if you are still holding on to what God has already finished. Holding on to what has ended can prevent you from recognizing what is beginning. It is difficult because endings often carry emotion. You become attached to people, places, expectations, and dreams. Letting go feels like loss, but in the hands of God, letting go is also preparation for receiving something greater. God never removes without intention. He never takes away without purpose. Even when you do not understand the process, He is working. G, with precision behind the scenes. There are seasons when God will allow something to completely fall apart so that something more stable can be built in its place. What you thought was permanent may have only been temporary. What you assumed would last forever may have been designed only for a season. God understands timing better than human desire. Endings also create space. As long as something occupies your hands, you cannot receive something new. As long as your heart is holding on to what is finished, you cannot fully embrace what is coming. Sometimes God must empty your grip so He can fill your life with something greater. You may feel like you are standing in emptiness right now. You may feel like everything familiar has been removed. But emptiness in God's process is never permanent. It is preparation space. It is the silence before a new sound, the pause before a new direction, the clearing before a new beginning. God specializes in resurrection. That means even what Lou K's completely dead is not beyond his ability. What people have declared finished, God can breathe life into again in a different form. But even more powerful is this truth. Sometimes God does not restore what was because he is building something better than what was lost. You may not recognize the beginning while you are standing in the middle of endings. It often feels confusing at first. There is uncertainty, emotional tension, and a sense of instability. But God is never confused in your confusion. He is always intentional in your transition. One of the hardest lessons in life is learning that not everything that ends is meant to return. Some things end because their purpose in your life is complete. But when something ends, it is not the end of your story. It is the end of a chapter, not the end of the book. What God starts after an ending often carries more strength, more clarity, and more alignment with your destiny than what came before. The beginning God creates after the E. Ding is often more stable than what you lost. You may feel like you are in a season of loss, but God may actually be preparing you for increase. You may feel like everything is falling apart, but God may actually be rearranging everything for greater purpose. You may feel like nothing is working, but God may actually be setting the stage for something you cannot yet imagine. The challenge is to trust him in the transition, to believe that even when things end, his plan continues, to hold on to hope even when familiar things disappear, to trust that God does not abandon his work halfway through. Because when God begins again, he never starts small. He begins with purpose, power, and perfect timing, turning what looked like an ending into the foundation of something new. There are moments in life when the waiting feels endless, but suddenly, without warning, everything begins to shift. What was stuck begins to move. What was delayed begins to arrive. What was silent begins to speak. W. Hat was closed begins to open. This is the nature of God's timing. It does not always follow human expectation, but it always carries perfect purpose. Many people underestimate how quickly things can change when God decides the moment has come. One season can feel heavy, slow, and unmoving, and then in a single shift, everything can look completely different. That is because God is never bound by time. While people measure progress in days, months, and years, God works in moments of divine alignment where everything comes together exactly as it should. Sometimes the delay you experience is not because nothing is happening, but because everything is being prepared at the same time. God is arranging details you cannot see. He is aligning opportunities, preparing people, and shaping circumstances so that when the breakthrough arrives, it is complete and not partial. What feels like waiting is often hidden coordination. There are seasons when you pray and nothing seems to respond immediately. Telly, you keep believing, but nothing changes outwardly. Yet behind the scenes, God is working in ways beyond human awareness. The unseen world is active even when the visible world appears still. What you interpret as silence may actually be construction happening in places you cannot access. When God moves, he does not just solve a single problem, he shifts entire systems. He does not only open one door, he creates pathways that lead to multiple breakthroughs. That is why his timing often feels different. It is not delay for delay's sake, it is preparation for something larger than what you originally asked for. Many times, God builds anticipation in your life so that when the answer arrives, you recognize his hand in it. If everything happened instantly, you might not see the depth of his involvement. But when you walk through waiting, pressure, uncertainty, and silence, you begin to understand that the outcome was not random. It was carefully designed. There is also a divine wisdom, Dom in timing that protects you from premature blessings. Not every opportunity is safe at every stage of your life. Not every open door is ready for you, and sometimes you are not ready for what you are praying for. God delays not to deny you, but to develop you. He ensures that when the blessing arrives, you have the maturity to handle it correctly. In many cases,